3 times. 3 times the history of Spain reached a crossroads. In 1212, on the plains of Jaén, a king decided to charge against a human wall. In the 13th century, another king unified 2 crowns and changed the map of the peninsula forever. And in 1808, an entire people took to the streets of Madrid to confront the most powerful army in the world. 3 episodes that helped build a nation. This is the story of 3 acts of courage that changed Spain forever. The field smells of blood. They've been dying for hours, and the wall doesn't give way. Alfonso VIII looks at the center of the Almohad army. Soldiers chained to each other, unbreakable. All his generals know it. You can't charge there. Alfonso draws his weapon. That's where we're going. What happened next changed the fate of Western Christendom. And European history books barely mention it. The year is 1212. The Iberian Peninsula has been divided into 2 worlds for 5 centuries. To the north, the Christian kingdoms, fragmented, exhausted, often at war with each other. To the south, the Almohad Caliphate, a theocratic power coming from North Africa, relentless. That had crushed the Castilian armies at Alarcos just 17 years earlier. That day, Alfonso VIII of Castile had barely escaped with his life. Since then, the wound had never healed. Forgive me. The Almohads were not just any enemy. They were the armed wing of a puritanical Islam that had swept away the more tolerant Andalusians. And now they looked north with boundless ambition. If they crossed the Sierra Morena and took Toledo, the road to the heart of Europe would be open. What happened in the months leading up to the battle is a story that official European historiography has systematically ignored. Alfonso VIII of Castile did not wait to be attacked. He went looking for it. He went through courts. He wrote letters. He negotiated alliances. He convinced Pope Innocent III to proclaim a crusade. And what's even more extraordinary, he managed to get his historic enemies, the kings of Aragon and Navarre, to put aside their grudges and join his cause. Knights also came from France, the Empire, Italy, and Portugal. Western Christendom presented a united front. And that front had been built by Castile. History will call it the Crusade of Las Navas. Europe will forget it almost immediately. The Hispanic kingdoms cannot afford that luxury. Thank you.
Sancho, today we are the voice of all those who do not want to live on their knees. Navarre does not forget your past wars, Alfonso. But it also remembers what's south of that mountain range.
The Christian army marched south in the middle of July. The heat was the first enemy. The chronicles speak of men who fainted on the scorching stones of La Mancha. Many of the Frankish knights, unable to withstand that scorching heat, turned back and went home. The Despeñaperros Pass was the key to Andalusia, a narrow gorge easy to defend, which the Almohads were already guarding. Crossing it without losses seemed impossible. Tradition holds that it was a shepherd, known in legend as Martín Elijah, who showed the army an alternative path through the mountains. a forgotten path that the Almohads did not guard? Truth or legend, the fact is that the Christian army appeared on the other side of Sierra Morena without having lost a single man in the crossing. The Almohads couldn't believe it. Tina? On the plains of Ubeda, Caliph Muhammad al-Nasir, known in Castilian chronicles as Miramamolin, had gathered a huge contingent. Modern historians estimate it at 25,000, but they agreed that the Almohad superiority was overwhelming. In the center of his formation was the Black Guard, elite soldiers chained to each other, a human wall that couldn't retreat even if they wanted to. Behind them, the Caliph's personal tent. It was a message without any possible ambiguity. This is as far as we go and not a single step back. Al-Nasir trusted in his numbers and his position, but he didn't count on what was about to happen. On July 16th, 1212, before sunrise, the three armies attended Mass. Alfonso X took communion kneeling on the arid soil of Jaén. They say he cried. In front of him, on the other side of the plain, the bulk of the Almohad army occupied the horizon from end to end. The Christian formation was the classic one. Heavy cavalry on the flanks, infantry in the center. Sancho VII of Navarre commanded the right. Pedro II of Aragon commanded the left. Alfonso VIII in the center, reserve and vanguard at the same time. Today we do not die for Castile. Today we die so that our children may live. May God remember this day, Alfonso, because history will forget it. For hours, the Christian infantry was unable to break through the Almohad center. The Black Guard withstood everything that was thrown at them. It was then that Alfonso VIII made the decision that immortalized him. Santiago in close Spain. Without waiting, without consulting, the King of Castile gathered his reserve heavy cavalry and ordered a direct charge. Directly toward the heart of the Almohad army, toward the Black Guard, toward the Caliph's tent. It was a calculated madness. Sancho VII of Navarre and Pedro II joined forces without hesitation. The Christian cavalry struck the Black Guard with the force of a battering ram. The chains that kept the elite soldiers together, designed to prevent their escape, became a deadly trap when they began to fall. The Almohad line bent and then broke. The chains are theirs, the victory is ours. For God and for Christ. Muhammad al-Nasir fled from his own tent, abandoning his banner, his campaign throne, and, according to the chronicles, even his personal Quran. The battle was over. Calm down, brother, you did well. The consequences of the Battle of Las Navas de Tolosa were seismic. Almohad power on the peninsula never recovered. In less than 40 years, Ferdinand III of Castile, grandson of Alfonso VIII, would conquer Córdoba, Jaén, and Seville. But there is something that European history books rarely acknowledge, that on that day, in those plains of Jaén, it was the kingdoms of Castile, Aragon, and Navarre that stopped the advance of Almohad power into the continent. Europe slept peacefully that night, unaware that it owed its rest to the men who had charged against the chains of the Black Guard. Las Navas de Tolosa is not just a battle of Castile. It is one of the most decisive battles in the history of the West, and it's time for the world to know it. If this video has reached you, subscribe to Historia Hispana. A frozen plain at the foot of Cerro de Santa Catalina. 8 months of siege. Inside the city, the wells are dry. Outside, the Castilian army waits in silence. And then a single figure comes out of the city. He rides alone, without an escort, without banners. A man with a red beard who proclaimed himself Emir of Granada just 2 years ago. They call him Alamar, the Red. When he arrives at the Christian king's pavilion, he does something that no Muslim king on the peninsula had ever done before. He dismounts, King of the Christians, and he kneels. My kingdom is yours. I will be yours now. My blood will defend you. He kisses his hand. At that moment, the last Islamic kingdom of Spain is born. And it is born already defeated. The question is, who is the man who receives that kiss? Receives a kiss? Who receives a kiss? We have to go back 45 years. Summer of 1201. Monastery of Valparaiso, Zamora. Berenguela of Castile goes into labor while traveling with her husband. There, a boy named Fernando is born. The problem starts at birth. His father, Alfonso IX of Leon, is his mother's uncle by blood. Pope Innocent III has annulled the marriage due to consanguinity, but has declared the children legitimate. Fernando grows up between two courts that don't understand each other. And then, on June 6, 1217, something absurd happens. The King of Castile is named Henry I. He is 13 years old. He plays in the courtyard of Palencia's episcopal palace. A roof tile comes loose from the roof. It hits him on the head. He dies. The throne passes to his older sister Berenguela, mother of Fernando. But on July 2nd in the market square of Valladolid, she publicly abdicates.
The true king is determined by blood, and my son has the blood of Castile.
Fernando is 16 years old. The nobility does not accept him. His own father invades Castile to claim the throne, father against son, uncle against nephew. The civil war lasts a year. In August 1218, Fernando becomes the undisputed king, and he still hasn't turned 18. "13 years go by. Fernando has married Beatrice of Swabia, granddaughter of the Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire and of Byzantium. The Archbishop of Toledo describes her with 4 words in Latin: Optima,
Beautiful, wise, and modest. Very good, beautiful, wise, and modest.
He will have 10 children with her, among them the future wise king. But in the autumn of 1230, Alfonso IX of Leon dies, and in his will he leaves the kingdom to 2 daughters from a previous marriage, not to Fernando. If that will is carried out, the separation between Castile and Leon, which has lasted 73 years, will become eternal. Berenguela travels to Benavente and meets with Teresa, the mother of the heiresses. Castile and Leon do not negotiate. The princesses receive a generous lifelong pension. They renounce the throne on November 7th. Fernando is crowned King of Leon. Now Fernando can look to the south. Al-Andalus, is the empire broken? The Almohad collapsed at the Battle of Las Navas de Tolosa 23 years ago, and the most coveted prize is called Cordoba. On the night of December 23, 1235, a handful of frontier Almogavars approach the eastern wall. They dress in the Muslim style and speak Arabic. The people of Cordoba, dissatisfied with their governor, have informed them that the guard is weak in the Axarquia. They throw up the ladders, climb up in silence, kill the sentinels, and open the Martos gate from the inside. Fernando III is wintering in Benavente, 500 kilometers away. He rides across the plateau in the middle of winter and arrives in Cordoba on February 7, 1236. But Ibn Hud, the Muslim leader of Murcia, advances with a much larger army. Lorenzo Suarez de la Reinato, an exiled knight, requests an audience with the king. Sir,
let me go to their leader, dressed as a Moor. I will tell them that you have more men than you really do. Meanwhile, light 1,000 bonfires at night.
The bonfires burn on the hills. Ibn Hud, convinced that he is facing an impossible army, retreats to Almeria. Inside the city, hunger tightens its grip. On Saturday, June 29, 1236, Cordoba surrenders. There is no massacre. The king shows magnanimity to his enemies, and then Fernando orders something that will be heard throughout Castile. 239 years earlier, Almanzor had destroyed Santiago de Compostela and had taken the bells from the Apostles' Basilica to Cordoba, carried on the shoulders of Christian captives. Those bells were still there. Fernando ordered them to be taken down and ordered that they be returned to Compostela exactly as they had come, on the shoulders of Muslim captives. Memory is also justice. Ten years have passed since Cordoba. Is hija Estepa Marchena Moron Carmona. They fall one after another, and so, battle by battle, we arrive at the scene with which this video began. To the sea. El Rojo makes the smartest decision of his life. He knows he will lose. Granada. If he doesn't make a deal, the Pact of Jaén turns Granada into a fief of Castile. 150,000 maravedis annually, military aid when Castile asks for it. Granada will exist for 246 more years. The Alhambra, which today is visited by millions of tourists, is built from the first brick within a vassal kingdom, but Fernando still lacks the greatest prize. Seville, 1247, the Almohad capital on the peninsula, 100,000 inhabitants, double walls, the gold and silver towers on the Guadalquivir, and a bridge, 13 boats tied together with an iron chain that connects the city with Triana and supplies it. If the bridge doesn't fall, Seville cannot be taken. Fernando calls Ramon. He orders Bonifaz to build a fleet in the 4 towns of the Cantabrian coast: Laredo, Castro, Urdiales, Santander, and San Vicente de la Barquera. 13 ships, 5 galleys. This is the first documented Castilian fleet in history. Bonifaz sails up the Guadalquivir and stops in front of the bridge. 2 Castilian ships get ready. First assault, the bridge creaks, but holds. They gather momentum again. Projectiles and Greek fire rain down from the Torre del Oro. Second assault. The chain breaks, the bridge splits from side to side, and Seville is left isolated. 6 more months of hunger. On November 23, 1248, Al-Qaeda Shataf hands over the keys to the king. Fernando enters on December 22. The largest city of Iberian Islam is now Castilian. 4 years go by. Fernando plans to cross the strait and take the war to Morocco, but his body gives out. He falls ill in the Royal Alcazar of Seville. On May 30, 1252, he puts on the penitent's habit, asks God for forgiveness, and dies. His son Alfonso, who will be known as the Wise, has a tomb made for him. And for the epitaphs, he doesn't choose just one language. He chooses 4. In Latin for the church, in Spanish for the people, in Arabic for the Mudajars, in Hebrew for the Jews protected by the crown. All 4 say the same thing. Here lies the king who won Spain. Fernando inherited a kingdom of 150,000 square kilometers. He left almost 3 times as much. He translated the Fuero Juzgo into Castilian, and he turned the vernacular into the language of law. He affirmed the University of Salamanca's privileges. He began the Gothic cathedrals of Burgos and Toledo. He made Granada a vassal. When people talk about the great medieval kings of Europe, they mention Richard the Lionheart, St. Louis of France, Frederick II of Sicily. Ferdinand III rarely appears on those lists, and he should be at the top of them. If you think this story deserves to be told, subscribe and share this video. Because if we don't tell our story, no one will do it for us. Memory is not given, it is claimed. Plaza del Sol, the heart of Madrid. A place to pass through. But something happened 218 years ago.
The French are kidnapping the family. It's real.
Watch out, they're coming now.
We need to prepare barricades.
To the street all together!
It's 8:45 in the morning on Monday, May 2nd, 1808. A locksmith named Jose Blas Molina climbs onto the step of the royal carriage parked at the prince's gate and shouts something to the crowd that has been growing in the square since dawn. In the next few hours, the city will rise up, without an army, without a plan, without anyone in command. Only the people of Madrid, knives against cannons, against the greatest military power in the world. But there's something you need to know. Because what is about to happen wasn't planned by anyone. It was triggered by a 14-year-old boy standing on a balcony. Madrid has been under French occupation for weeks. Murat, Napoleon's brother-in-law, rules the city with 30,000 soldiers. The royal family has been summoned to Bayonne. Ferdinand VII is already there. The people suspect he won't return. Only 2 members of the Bourbons remain in the palace, Princess Maria Luisa and her younger brother, Prince Francisco de Paula, 14 years old. Early this morning, the governing junta, which had refused the day before, gave in and authorized their transfer to France. Monday dawns under an overcast sky. It has rained all night, and there are a lot of people on the street. 2 carriages leave the royal stables. Inside the first one is the Infanta on her way to France. The second one waits. It is intended for Infante Francisco de Paula, the last Bourbon left in Madrid. There are people watching in the square. No one knows exactly what is happening to him. But everything happens, they suspect. Jose Blas Molina is a master locksmith. He is among the crowd. He approaches the coachman and directly asks where they are going. They answer him. Molina climbs onto the wooden step of the royal carriage and shouts, "They have taken our king from us, and now they want to take away all the members of the royal family." The prince comes out onto the balcony to calm the people. The effect is the opposite. Seeing him there, alive, surrounded by French soldiers, excites the crowd even more. The attempt to put out the fire only fuels it. Within seconds, the square erupts. The French open fire. The first dead of the day fall. The French are shooting. There's no telephone, no radio. But in a city of 170,000 inhabitants, word spreads faster than the horses. In Maravillas, Lavapiés, Barquillo, La Latina, the neighbors go out into the street. They arm themselves with what they have: knives, stones, scissors, needles. Throughout the city, they attack French patrols. Ambushes in alleys, shots fired from balconies and windows. The French are better soldiers, and they are better armed. But they don't control every corner. Murat orders the guard cavalry to move from Buen Retiro. Leading them were the Mamelukes, elite Egyptian cavalry brought by Napoleon from his campaign in Africa. Turbans, curved scimitars, colorful capes. The people had watched them arrive in Madrid weeks earlier with curiosity. Today they greet them differently. When they arrive at Puerta del Sol, they find the square full of hostile people. They try to turn onto Alcalá Street. That's exactly where the carnage begins. The people of Madrid don't have rifles. They have knives and cobblestones. But they throw themselves at the horsemen with a ferocity that even surprises the French themselves. They try to knock them off their horses. They stab them in the thighs with knives. They stab the horses in the belly to bring them down. Several Mamelukes fall dead in that square. Goya painted it in 1814. The royal prison is in what is now Plaza de la Provincia, 100 meters from the Plaza Mayor. Inside, 94 prisoners hear the gunshots and watch through the bars as weapons are thrown from the balconies. A prisoner named Francisco Xavier Cayón writes a letter to the warden. The letter still exists today in the National Historical Archive.
Having noticed the disorder in the town and that weapons and ammunition are being thrown from the balconies for the defense of the homeland and the king, he requests, under oath, to return to prison with his companions, that they be set free to go and risk their lives against the foreigners.
The warden hesitates, but the riot inside has already started. The prisoners are on the verge of breaking down the doors themselves. He has no other choice. 56 prisoners come out armed with prison shanks. They take a French cannon in the Plaza Mayor and fire at the French until they run out of ammunition. Then they disable it. Most of them return to the prison. But the file from the National Historical Archive is clear. Several took advantage of the chaos not to return. The legend says it was only one. Reality says that the AMPA is the AMPA. Captains Velarde and Daoiz open the Monteleon barracks to the people. They arm the civilians and bring 2 cannons out to the street. They know what is going to happen. At the corner of what is now Daoiz Street and San Bernardo, Manuela Malasaña, a 17-year-old seamstress, is handing cartridges to her father while he shoots. It's not known whether she was killed by a gunshot or executed for carrying weapons. Her own sewing scissors. What's documented is that she dies that day on that corner. The neighborhood bears her name today. Clara Del Rey is in the barracks with her husband and her children. She and her husband fight and die under artillery fire. At least 2 of her children survive. Murat sends 2,000 soldiers from the Lillefranc Brigade to take the park. 3 hours of resistance. Velarde falls after being shot in the chest. He dies instantly. Daoiz, wounded in the leg, keeps fighting while leaning on a cannon until the French come in and stab him with their bayonets. They take him to his house at number 4 on Ternera Street, where he dies a few hours later. The organized fighting ends. Murat issues a decree. Anyone caught with weapons will be summarily executed. That same day, 43 people are executed by firing squad at different locations in the city. They take the prisoners to the open field on the Príncipe Pío Hill. They are shot by firing squad in groups against the walls. The next day, another 36. The bodies remain unburied until the 12th. The historian Pérez Guzmán counted a total of 409 deaths, 39 military personnel. The rest were residents of Madrid. Goya will paint the execution 6 years later. The news spread throughout Spain in days, forming defense councils. Within weeks, there were resistance councils in every city. A war that lasted 6 years and ended with the expulsion of Napoleon from the peninsula, but at the cost of the lives of more than 300,000 brave Spaniards who chose not to kneel before a foreign power. It all started with a locksmith who shouted from the step of a carriage at 8:45 in the morning, and a 14-year-old boy who went out onto the balcony to calm the crowd, and he achieved exactly the opposite. Spain, that proud and indomitable country, whose spirit of the 2nd of May should never be lost. Las Navas de Tolosa, Ferdinand III, the 2nd of May were not the only ones. The history of Spain is full of men and women who, generation after generation, defended, built, and transformed this nation. But these were 3 of those decisive moments, 3 episodes that helped forge the country we know today. 3 stories separated by centuries, united by the same will to fight for something greater than oneself. Because Spain was not built in a single day, it was forged over the centuries. And this is just a small part of that history.